Resident Evil has a rule it almost never breaks. It shows you the monster long before it shows you the mastermind. In Resident Evil 9, the monster looks like Victor Gideon. He's got the look, the power, the facility, and the marketing frames him as the one in control. But what if that's a lie? What if Victor Gideon isn't the villain of Resident Evil 9, but the proof that the real villain never died? Resident Evil loves to sell us on the obvious threat. The zombies in the original mansion, Nemesis hunting stars, Jack Baker stalking you through the house, Lady Demetress towering over the castle. They're the face on the poster, but they're never the architect. Behind them, there's always someone else. Spencer, Wesker, Umbrella, the Connection's mother, Miranda. In RE9, Victor Gideon is framed as the next face. He's the doctor in charge of a hospital with resources, staff, and test subjects. On the surface, he's your classic Resident Evil villain. But this series has almost never been honest on the first reveal. So instead of asking what Victor Gideon is doing, we should be asking who benefits when he succeeds. Here's the thing that's been overlooked. Victor Gideon didn't just show up recently. He acquired the care center in 2003, the exact year Umbrella officially collapsed. While the world watched the pharmaceutical empire fall apart, Gideon quietly set up shop in the shadows. And look what he's actually been doing. He's not building an army of zombies, he's been hunting a specific resource, Grace's blood. He needs it to perfect Elpis. Now, we've talked Elpis before. We could speculate all day on if it's a virus or a parasite or something else entirely, but the goal is clear. Gideon isn't trying to cause chaos, he's trying to stabilize a perfect form. Not a monster, not a god, but a stable endpoint. And if this all sounds familiar, it's because you've heard it before. It was the obsession of the man who started it all. To understand why Victor Gideon mirrors the work of a dead man, we have to start with what we know about Spencer. From the beginning, Spencer was obsessed with the idea of the perfect human. Viruses weren't just weapons to him, they were tools of eugenics. But the dream failed. Tyrants, Nemesis, every BOW Umbrella ever created was unstable. Spencer spent decades chasing an evolution that biology simply wouldn't allow. So when Umbrella collapses in 2003 and Victor Gideon quietly emerges pursuing the same dream, yeah, that timing isn't just a coincidence. But let's back up a little bit. Long before Umbrella, before the viruses, Spencer made one crucial journey. He traveled to a remote village in Eastern Europe and met Mother Miranda. They talked, shared ideas, bonded, and then they went their separate ways. See, Miranda's goal was emotional and singular, to bring one person back from the dead, her daughter, which honestly you can't really blame her. Spencer's was colder, broader, and far more dangerous. Forced evolution. The creation of a perfect human, not the resurrection of a loved one. To Spencer, the mold was fundamentally flawed. It was communal, parasitic, faith-driven. It relied on grief, loss, and worship, not control. So he walked away. Spencer didn't reject Miranda because he thought she failed. He rejected her because her vision was far too small. When Umbrella was formed, Spencer doubled down on the viruses. They are cleaner, more precise, more controllable. Evolution through science. And for decades, that path failed him. Umbrella collapses, the Tyrants fail, the Wesker project fractures, and most importantly, Spencer grows old. This is where a big shift happens. Late in life, Spencer stops chasing evolution and starts chasing immortality. And that's when he remembers his time in the village, not the mold as a weapon, but the idea behind it, the concept. Miranda had proven something Spencer dismissed decades earlier, that consciousness could persist, that memory could outlive the body. See, Spencer realized he had been trying to upgrade the hardware when he should have just been backing up the software. Spencer doesn't return to her methods, he doesn't embrace the mold, he never would. But he does, however, steal the concept and discards the faith. Viruses remain his tool, but immortality becomes the new goal. Alex Wesker's early experiments confirm what Spencer already suspected. He doesn't need her to finish the work, he just needed confirmation that the idea was viable. It wasn't so much that the perfect human was a failure, which up to this point it was that Spencer was just simply running out of time. So he pivots. If evolution couldn't save him, then survival would. Now let's look at Spencer's death in Resident Evil 5. He lets his butler Patrick go, which is already a massive red flag to anyone who understands Spencer. This is the man who murdered the guy who designed his house. Then he reveals his location to Wesker. He doesn't run, he doesn't resist, there's no boss fight, no transformation, no last attempt at survival. On paper, it looks like a loss, but read it another way. This was the perfect exit. Spencer didn't need his body anymore. If his consciousness was already stored, transferred, then all he needed from Wesker was simple. Close the book on Oswell E. Spencer. Kill the man, end the story, let the world believe it was finally over. The hardware was destroyed, but the software had already moved on. Where did the software go? Victor Gideon stops being a villain and becomes something tragic. Somewhere between Spencer's death and RE9, a private hospital quietly continues his work. Spencer doesn't want a clone, he wants to survive. He needs a stable delivery system, viruses, not the mold, a legitimate facility, and a carrier. That carrier is Victor Gideon, not a puppet, a willing participant. Well, at first. The reveal of RE9 isn't that Gideon is evil, it's that he was never meant to be in control. He was meant to carry Spencer. And that's where this stops being about Gideon. If he's just a vessel, the experiment isn't finished. The perfect forms he's creating, they're more than monsters. They're empty seats at a table waiting to be filled. Alex Wesker tried to copy herself and failed. The human mind can't bear the weight of a Wesker. But Spencer? He never cared about the limitations, he only cared that the mind survives. Every success, every perfect form, each one makes the old man harder to erase. Killing Gideon doesn't stop the clock, it just buys us time before the next one wakes up. And that's the horror. At first, Gideon thought he was in control, maybe even proud. But slowly, the line between him and Spencer blurred. Memories he never had become his. Halls he never walked feel familiar. He eats without hunger. He becomes obsessed with eugenics. The villain of RE9 isn't a mastermind smiling from a throne. It's a man screaming inside his own head while a dead man slowly takes the wheel. So if this is right, RE9 isn't just another outbreak versus another cover-up. It's identity versus extinction. Victor Gideon stops being the big bad. He becomes proof of concept. Proof that Spencer's dream didn't die in a mansion, it adapted. If Spencer can survive without a body, if he can live inside others, how do you even kill him? Destroy the facility, he moves. Kill the host, he migrates. All you need is one host, one carrier, one Victor Gideon. If Spencer can survive without a body, how many times does he really need to die? There's a reason this theory keeps circling back to Spencer. Not because he's the biggest villain, but because he's the first. Every outbreak, every experiment, every so-called evolution traces back to one idea: his. If Resident Evil 9 is about confronting what the series has become, then it has to reckon with the man who started it. Now, I already know some of you are going to say Victor Gideon is the villain, just another man playing God. Others are going to say he's a victim, the last step in a plan he didn't fully understand. So tell me, was Gideon ever really in control, or was he just the first one to wake up? With Resident Evil 9 almost here, the wait is almost over. We'll be covering every twisted detail right here. We've also officially opened up memberships. If you want to support the channel directly and get access to the new perks, hit the join button. But whether you're a member or just watching, if you're subscribed, you're in the dead zone. We are the Respawn Bros. Thank you for stopping by, and as always, keep dying, keep trying.